What if I told you that one executive order just triggered the most dramatic diplomatic shift in Asia since Nixon went to China? August 27th, 2025, 12 a.m. 50% tariffs slam into Indian goods, the highest rate ever imposed on a democratic ally in modern history. Washington's plan was simple: force India to choose between cheap Russian oil and $87 billion in American trade. But what happened next will shock you. Within 72 hours, India's Prime Minister was on a plane, not to Washington to negotiate, but to China for his first visit in 7 years. By September 1st, viral photos showed Modi literally holding hands with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping at a summit in Tianjin. 3 nuclear powers, 3 billion people, all smiling while America's tariffs were supposed to be punishing India into submission. President Trump called the India-US relationship a totally one-sided disaster after seeing those photos. But the real disaster? America just taught its biggest democratic ally in Asia that sovereignty has a price, and India decided to pay it. But first, you need to understand the trap America just walked into, and how they completely misread India's next move. The 50% tariff wasn't random. President Trump signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on India specifically for purchasing Russian oil, bringing the combined tariffs to 50%. Here's what makes this strategically dangerous. The tariffs affect 55% of India's $87 billion in exports to America, hitting textiles, gems, jewelry, leather, and chemicals. But pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and energy were strategically exempted, sectors where America desperately needs Indian supply chains. Washington's calculations seemed logical. India needs American markets. They'll comply rather than lose billions. But here's what American strategists fatally miscalculated. They forgot that India has been playing the sovereignty game for 75 years. Survived the Cold War by refusing to pick sides, built nuclear weapons despite superpower sanctions, maintained independence when the world demanded alignment. And on August 18th, just 9 days before the tariffs took effect, China's top diplomat Wang Yi flew to New Delhi as the two sides announced their rapprochement. The timing wasn't coincidental. Modi would soon make his first trip to China in 7 years, arriving in Tianjin on August 30th for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. What happened in that Chinese city would send shockwaves through Washington. August 30th, Tianjin, China. Modi arrives for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, his first China visit since 2018. But this wasn't just routine diplomacy. The next day, Xi Jinping and Modi held a bilateral meeting where both leaders vowed to resolve border differences. Think about that. 2 nations whose soldiers died in hand-to-hand combat at Galwan Valley in 2020, suddenly talking cooperation just days after America imposed punitive tariffs on India. But the real diplomatic earthquake was yet to come. Russian leader Vladimir Putin arrived in Tianjin on Sunday, meeting with both leaders. For the first time since the Ukraine war began, Modi, Putin, and Xi Jinping were photographed literally holding hands, an image that went viral as a symbolic blow to Trump's pressure campaign. The photos showed Modi joining Putin for a drive in the Russian leader's armored limousine, a not-so-subtle statement of defiance just days after the US doubled tariffs on India. The optics were devastating for US credibility. America, the supposed champion of democracy, was using economic warfare against the world's largest democracy. Meanwhile, China and Russia were welcoming India as an equal partner. According to diplomatic observers, what mattered most about the SCO summit was not the official statements, but the attendance. 3 major powers coordinating while America's closest democratic ally in Asia chose Beijing over Washington. But the real consequences were just beginning. September 1st, 2025. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit officially begins. But the real story was happening in bilateral meetings that would reshape Asian geopolitics. Xi and Modi's meeting produced commitments to resolve border differences and bolster cooperation between the two nuclear powers that have been rivals for decades. Xi also held bilateral meetings with Putin, while Modi met separately with the Russian leader. The message was clear. 3 nations representing 3 billion people were coordinating their response to American pressure. But here's what made this moment historically significant. Since its formation in 2001 as a regional security group, the SCO had never hosted such a high-profile gathering while one member was under active economic attack by the United States. The viral image of Modi, Putin, and Xi literally holding hands wasn't just symbolic. It was a direct message to Trump that his tariff strategy was backfiring spectacularly. The timing couldn't have been worse for Washington. Just as America needed India as a democratic counterweight to China, the 50% tariffs pushed New Delhi toward Beijing at the moment when US-India relations were already at their worst. And the consequences? They're already reshaping the global balance of power. The aftermath of the Tianjin summit reveals the true cost of America's tariff gamble. Trump's reaction was immediate and telling. He called the India-US trade relationship a totally one-sided disaster after Modi's China visit. But the disaster wasn't India's trade policies. It was America's strategic miscalculation. With $86 billion in Indian exports at risk and 55% of trade flows affected by the tariffs, India had every economic incentive to capitulate. Instead, they chose sovereignty over submission. The image of Modi riding in Putin's armored limousine sent a clear signal. India would find alternative partnerships rather than bow to American economic pressure. Analysts note that the viral photos from Tianjin highlighted shifting power dynamics and demonstrated the limits of American economic coercion. When you try to force a democracy to choose between energy security and trade relationships, sometimes they choose independence instead. The SCO summit wasn't just about regional cooperation. It demonstrated that major economies could coordinate outside American-led systems. 3 nuclear powers, representing nearly 40% of humanity, showing the world that economic sovereignty was possible. Xi Jinping's decision to roll out the red carpet for both Putin and Modi, while Trump was imposing tariffs, wasn't coincidental. It was strategic. China offered what America couldn't: respect for India's sovereign choices. The viral images from Tianjin captured more than diplomatic protocol. They documented the moment American economic dominance in Asia began to crack. So, can New Delhi ever trust America again? The August 27th tariffs were designed to force a choice: Russian oil or American markets. India's response, riding in Putin's limousine while shaking hands with Xi Jinping, showed that when you force sovereign nations to choose between submission and independence, some will choose independence. The SCO summit revealed the emergence of coordination mechanisms that operate outside American influence, not through military confrontation or ideological opposition, but through simple diplomatic fact. Major economies can prosper without American permission. Whether this represents a permanent realignment or tactical positioning remains to be seen. But one thing is documented. The viral photos from Tianjin captured shifting power dynamics that highlight the limits of American economic coercion. August 27th may be remembered as the day America's tariff weapon became Asia's unification catalyst. The implications extend far beyond trade statistics. With 55% of India's $87 billion in exports affected and relations at their worst point in decades, this isn't just about tariffs anymore. What do you think? Do the images of Modi, Putin, and Xi holding hands represent a temporary tactical shift or the beginning of a permanent realignment in global power? How should democratic nations balance sovereignty with alliance relationships? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to follow how this documented shift continues to reshape Asian geopolitics. Because based on the verified facts we've covered, this story is far from over, and the next developments may be even more dramatic than what we've already witnessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.